The day he kicked her out, he felt victorious, laughing with his mistress. A few months later, one envelope arrived, and his billion-dollar world began to collapse. The Bellini estate sat on a cliff in Malibu, like a crown jewel refusing to fall into the sea. 17,000 square feet of Italian marble, floor-to-ceiling windows, and the kind of silence that only money can buy. Jennifer Bellini stood in the master bathroom, steam rising from the shower she hadn't yet stepped into. She stared at her reflection. 38 years old, dark hair pulled back, no makeup. She had stopped wearing makeup 3 years ago, when Marco told her she looked desperate when she tried. She didn't look desperate now. She looked tired. The kind of tired that settles into your bones after years of being invisible in your own home. From downstairs, she heard Marco's voice, sharp, irritated, the way it always was when he spoke to her. "Jennifer, where the hell is my blue tie? The Hermes one. I have the Covington meeting in 2 hours." Jennifer closed her eyes. She knew exactly where the tie was. Third drawer, left side, underneath the gray cashmere scarf she had bought him for Christmas. The Christmas he had spent in Aspen with his business associates. She walked downstairs in her robe, her bare feet cold against the marble. Marco was in the foyer, adjusting his cufflinks in the mirror. He didn't turn around. "The tie, Jennifer. Today." "Third drawer," she said quietly. "Left side." Marco snapped his fingers. "Then get it. I don't have time to dig through your organizational disasters." Jennifer felt the familiar tightness in her chest. After 11 years of marriage, she should have been used to this. The dismissals, the commands, the way he talked to her like she was staff. He was considering firing. She retrieved the tie and handed it to him. He snatched it without looking at her. "The Covington deal closes today," Marco said, threading the silk around his neck. $400 million. When I get home tonight, I want the house ready. Candles, music, the whole thing. We're celebrating." Jennifer watched his hands move with practiced efficiency. Those hands had held hers once, at their wedding in Tuscany, in the early years when he still looked at her like she was something precious. "Will you be home for dinner?" she asked. Marco laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. "Dinner? Jennifer, I just told you. $400 million. I'll be home when I'm home. Just make sure everything is perfect." He grabbed his briefcase and walked toward the door. Then he stopped, turning to look at her for the first time that morning. His eyes traveled down her robe, her bare feet, her uncombed hair. "And maybe put some effort into yourself today," he said, his lip curling slightly. "You look like the cleaning lady." The door closed behind him with a heavy thud. Jennifer stood in the foyer, the morning light streaming through the windows, illuminating the dust particles floating in the air. She had a master's degree from Columbia. She had given up a career in architecture to support his dreams. She had hosted his parties, charmed his investors, and smiled through 11 years of being made to feel like she was never quite enough. She walked to the window and watched his Bentley disappear down the winding driveway. "Cleaning lady," she whispered to herself. She didn't know it yet, but that would be the last insult she would ever accept from Marco Bellini. 3 weeks later, Jennifer sat in the private office of Dr. Eleanor Vance, the marriage counselor Marco had reluctantly agreed to see. The office was warm, filled with soft light and leather furniture. It felt safe. Maybe that's why Jennifer finally let herself speak. "He doesn't see me anymore," Jennifer said, her hands clasped in her lap. "I could disappear tomorrow and he wouldn't notice until his dinner wasn't ready." Dr. Vance nodded, her pen hovering over her notepad. "And when did you first notice this change?" Jennifer thought about it. 3 years ago, maybe 4. He started working later, coming home smelling like different. I told myself it was stress. The business was growing, but then she trailed off. "Then what, Jennifer?" "I found a receipt in his jacket pocket for a necklace. Cartier, $47,000. Jennifer's voice was steady, but her eyes were wet. "I didn't get a necklace that Christmas. I got a card. He didn't even sign it himself. His assistant did." The silence in the room was heavy. "Have you confronted him about your suspicions?" Jennifer shook her head. "What would be the point?" "He'd deny it. He'd turn it around on me. He'd say I was being paranoid, that I don't understand the pressures he's under." She laughed bitterly. He has a way of making me feel crazy for seeing what's right in front of my face. That night, Jennifer decided to end the uncertainty. Marco had left his iPad on the kitchen counter, something he never did. He guarded his devices like state secrets. But tonight he had been in a rush. Something about an emergency at the office. Jennifer picked up the iPad. Her hands were shaking. Part of her didn't want to know. Part of her wanted to stay in the comfortable fog of denial she had lived in for years. But she was tired of being a ghost in her own life. The password was his birthday. Of course it was. Marco's arrogance extended even to his security choices. She opened his messages. The name at the top of his recent conversations made her stomach drop. Rita. Jennifer didn't recognize the name, but she recognized the tone immediately. Last night was incredible. When can I see you again? Miss you already, counting the minutes. The suite at the Peninsula is booked for Friday. Wear that red thing I like. Jennifer scrolled, her vision blurring. The messages went back 18 months. 18 months of lies. 18 months of him coming home to her bed after being in someone else's. But it was the last message that broke something inside her. Marco had written, "Don't worry about Jennifer. She's harmless. Honestly, she's so clueless, it's almost sad. The moment the Covington deal closes, I'm getting the lawyers involved. You and me, baby, that's the future." And Rita had responded, "Can't wait to be Mrs. Bellini. She doesn't deserve you anyway. She's so bland." Jennifer set the iPad down very carefully. Her hands had stopped shaking. Something had shifted inside her. A door closing, a light switching off. She wasn't sad. She was awake. Jennifer waited 3 days. 3 days of smiling at Marco across the breakfast table. 3 days of pressing his shirts and organizing his schedule, and pretending she didn't know that every word out of his mouth was poison wrapped in silk. She used those 3 days wisely. She made phone calls, quiet ones, to people she hadn't spoken to in years, to an attorney named Victoria Chen, who had been her roommate at Columbia before becoming one of the most feared divorce lawyers in California, to a forensic accountant named Gerald Hoffman, who owed her a favor from a lifetime ago. And she made one very important phone call to her father, a father Marco had never bothered to meet, a father Marco thought was a retired electrician living in a small house in Ohio. Marco had never asked questions about her family. He wasn't interested in where she came from. He only cared about what she could do for him. That was his first mistake. On the third night, Marco came home late, 11:30. He smelled like expensive wine and a perfume that wasn't Jennifer's. She was sitting in the living room waiting for him. The lights were low. A single lamp cast shadows across her face. "You're still up," Marco said, loosening his tie. He didn't sound pleased. "I told you not to wait for me." "Sit down, Marco." Something in her voice made him pause. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. She was wearing a simple black dress. Her hair was down. Her eyes were clear and steady. "What's this about?" he asked, an edge of irritation creeping in. "I've had a long day. I'm not in the mood for whatever crisis you've invented." "Sit down." Marco sat, not because he wanted to, but because something in her tone left no room for argument. Jennifer reached beside her and placed the iPad on the coffee table between them. "Who is Rita?" The color drained from Marco's face. It happened in an instant, that moment when someone realizes they've been caught and hasn't yet figured out which lie to tell. "What are you talking about?" "I'm not going to play this game with you." Jennifer's voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. "I've read the messages, 18 months of them. I know about the Peninsula. I know about the Cartier necklace. I know that you've been planning to divorce me the moment your precious Covington deal closed." Marco's shock lasted only a few seconds before it transformed into something uglier. Defensive anger. "You went through my things?" He stood up, his voice rising. "How dare you, after everything I've given you? This house, the cars, the life you live because of me?" "The life I live?" Jennifer stood too, meeting his eyes. "You mean the life where I'm treated like furniture? Where I'm talked to like a servant? Where I gave up everything, my career, my dreams, my identity, to support a man who's been sleeping with another woman for 18 months? You're overreacting. It didn't mean anything. Her name is Rita Fontaine. She works at your PR firm. She's 26 years old. And according to your messages, you've promised to make her Mrs. Bellini. Jennifer tilted her head. Did I miss anything? Marco's jaw tightened. The mask was slipping now. She could see the real him underneath. The coldness. The calculation. Fine, he said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. You want the truth? Yes. I've been seeing Rita. And yes, I'm going to marry her. Because she's everything you're not, Jennifer. She's exciting. She's ambitious. She makes me feel alive. He stepped closer, towering over her. You make me feel like I'm drowning in mediocrity. The words were designed to wound. Once they would have. But Jennifer had spent 3 days preparing for this moment. She had cried her tears in private. She had mourned the death of her marriage in the dark hours of the night. Now standing in front of the man who had wasted 11 years of her life, she felt only a cold, crystalline clarity. I want a divorce, she said simply. Marco laughed. Actually laughed. A divorce? Sweetheart, have you seen the prenup you signed? You get nothing. Nothing. You'll walk out of here with the clothes on your back and whatever pathetic savings you've hidden away. I remember the prenup. Then you know you're finished. 11 years of marriage and you'll leave with less than my assistant makes in a month. He shook his head, a cruel smile spreading across his face. But hey, that's what happens when you bring nothing to the table. You were always just a placeholder, Jennifer. Something pretty to have on my arm at parties. Did you really think you were my equal? Jennifer absorbed the words. Each one was a brick in the wall she was building, a wall that would soon come crashing down on him. I'd like you to move out, she said quietly. Tonight. Marco's laughter filled the room. Move out? Of my house. This is my name on the deed, my money that paid for every inch of this place. If anyone's moving out, it's you. He pointed toward the door. Pack a bag. I'll have my lawyer send the paperwork. No. The single word hung in the air. Excuse me? I said no. Jennifer reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Before you call your lawyers, you might want to read this. Marco snatched the paper, unfolding it with irritated, jerky movements. His eyes scanned the document, then stopped, then went back to the beginning and read again. The color that had drained from his face earlier was nothing compared to now. He looked like a man watching his own execution. This is, he stammered. This can't be. It can. And it is. Jennifer's voice was ice. You never asked about my family, Marco. You never cared where I came from. You were so busy looking down at me that you never thought to look up. Your father is... Harrington Coal is... My father is Theodore Harrington, founder of Harrington Coal Industries, the company that owns the bank that funded your Covington deal, the company that holds 43% of the bonds your entire business empire is built on. Jennifer smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You married the heir to a $4 billion fortune, Marco, and you never even knew it. Marco's legs seemed to give out. He collapsed back onto the couch, the paper trembling in his hands. I kept it hidden because I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I had, Jennifer continued. I wanted a partner, not a treasure hunter. And for the first few years, I thought I had found one. Her voice hardened. I was wrong. Jennifer. Marco's tone had shifted completely. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost like fear. Jennifer, wait. Let's talk about this. I didn't mean those things I said. I was stressed. The deal has been... The deal. Jennifer cut him off. Let's talk about the deal. The Covington deal. $400 million. The biggest acquisition of your career. She paused. Did you know that Harrington Coal has a seat on Covington's board? Marco's face contorted. No. One phone call, Marco. That's all it would take. One phone call from my father and your deal evaporates. Your investors pull out, your credit lines dry up, and the house of cards you've spent 20 years building, she made a soft gesture with her hand, like a flower blooming. Gone. You wouldn't. I haven't decided yet. Jennifer walked to the window, looking out at the ocean. The moon was full, casting silver light across the waves. I'm not a cruel person, Marco. Despite everything you've done to me, I don't want revenge. I just want to be free. She turned back to him. The man on the couch didn't look like a billionaire anymore. He looked small, frightened, pathetic. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to move out of this house tonight. You're going to sign the divorce papers my attorney sends you without contest. You're going to give me what I'm entitled to under California law. Half of everything we built during this marriage. And you're going to do it quietly, without dragging my name through the press. And if I don't, Jennifer's smile was sad. Then I make the phone call, and you lose everything. She walked toward the stairs, then paused. Oh, and Marco, tell Rita I said hello. I hope she has a backup plan, because the man she's waiting for is about to become significantly less attractive. She disappeared up the stairs, leaving Marco Bellini alone in the living room of the house he no longer controlled, holding a piece of paper that had just rewritten his entire future. Marco didn't leave that night. He convinced himself that Jennifer was bluffing, that she was too soft, too kind, too weak to actually follow through. He had spent 11 years molding her into something small and manageable. Surely a single conversation couldn't undo all that work. So he made a different choice. He called his lawyers at midnight. He called Rita at 1 a.m, whispering reassurances that everything would be fine. And at dawn, he made a call to a man named Vincent Greco, a fixer who specialized in making problems disappear. I need information on a company called Harrington Coal, Marco said, his voice low. And I need everything you can find on a woman named Jennifer Bellini. Maiden name Harrington. I want to know every skeleton in her closet. That's going to cost you. I don't care what it costs, just find me something I can use. Meanwhile, Jennifer was already 3 steps ahead. She had moved into the guest house on the property, a small cottage overlooking the cliffs that Marco had used for storage. She didn't mind. It felt cleaner than the main house, less contaminated by the lies that had soaked into every wall. Victoria Chen arrived at noon, carrying a leather briefcase and a disposition that could freeze fire. So, Victoria said, spreading documents across the kitchen table, your husband is an idiot. Jennifer laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in weeks. Tell me something I don't know. I mean legally, financially, strategically. Victoria tapped a finger on a stack of papers. He's been so busy hiding assets from the IRS that he left a paper trail a child could follow. Offshore accounts in the Caymans, shell companies in Delaware, a real estate portfolio he neglected to disclose in your prenup. What does that mean? Victoria's smile was predatory. It means your prenup is void. He committed fraud by omission. And it means that when this goes to court, if it goes to court, you won't just get half. You'll get whatever a judge decides is fair compensation for 11 years of marriage to a man who lied to you from day one. Jennifer absorbed this. I don't want to destroy him, Victoria. I know you don't. That's what makes you a better person than him. Victoria leaned forward. But Jennifer, you need to understand something. A man like Marco doesn't accept defeat gracefully. He's going to fight dirty. He's going to try to humiliate you. He's going to paint you as a gold digger, a liar, a crazy ex-wife. You need to be prepared for that. I am. Are you? Because in my experience, women who say that usually aren't. They think their husbands will see reason. They think love, even dead love, will mean something. Victoria's eyes were sharp. Love means nothing in a divorce court. Only evidence matters. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a USB drive. 11 years, Jennifer said softly. For 11 years, I kept records, bank statements, emails, photos. I knew something was wrong. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew. So I documented everything. She handed the drive to Victoria. I think you'll find what you need. Victoria took the drive, her expression shifting to something like respect. Jennifer Harrington, you may have played the quiet wife, but you're not as soft as he thought. No, Jennifer agreed. I'm not. 2 weeks passed. Marco had refused to move out, instead installing himself in the east wing of the estate like a king under siege. He and Jennifer passed each other like ships in the night. Cold nods, colder silences. But Marco wasn't idle. Vincent Greco had delivered his report, and while he hadn't found any skeletons in Jennifer's closet, he had found something Marco considered equally valuable: leverage. Jennifer's father, Theodore Harrington, was facing a hostile takeover attempt at Harrington Coal. A consortium of investors, led by a man named Robert Ashworth, was quietly buying up shares, positioning themselves to seize control of the company. Marco saw opportunity. He reached out to Robert Ashworth. They met in a private club in downtown Los Angeles. Two men who recognized the same hunger in each other's eyes. "I can give you information," Marco said, swirling a glass of scotch. "Internal information about Harrington Coal, weaknesses, vulnerabilities, things that would give you a significant advantage in your takeover bid." Ashworth's eyes narrowed. "And in return?" "In return, when you take control of Harrington Coal, you make sure that any claims Jennifer Bellini has to the family fortune are complicated, tied up in legal proceedings for years, decades if necessary." "That sounds personal." "It is." Marco's smile was thin. "Do we have a deal?" Ashworth considered for a moment, then extended his hand. "We have a deal." Marco shook it, feeling a rush of triumph. Jennifer thought she had him cornered. She thought her family name would protect her. But Marco Bellini hadn't built an empire by surrendering when the odds turned against him. He would burn it all down before he let her win. What Marco didn't know was that the waiter who had refilled his water twice during that meeting wasn't actually a waiter. He was Gerald Hoffman, Jennifer's forensic accountant, and he had recorded every word. The morning of Marco's 42nd birthday dawned gray and overcast, a marine layer smothering the Malibu coast. Rita had stayed the night, boldly in the main house, as if to stake her claim. She was 26, blonde, with the kind of beauty that photographs well, but fades fast. She had met Marco at a company event 18 months ago and had recognized immediately what he was. A man whose wallet was bigger than his morals. She didn't love him, but she loved what he represented. The private jets, the yacht in Monaco, the Amex black card that never declined. "Happy birthday, baby," Rita cooed, nuzzling against Marco's shoulder. "I have something special planned for tonight. I booked that restaurant you love, the one with the 7-course tasting menu." Marco smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He had bigger things on his mind. Today, Ashworth was making his move on Harrington Coal, and if everything went according to plan, by this time tomorrow, Jennifer's leverage would be worthless. The doorbell rang. "I'll get it," Rita said, slipping into a silk robe that cost more than most people's rent. She returned moments later, carrying a small white envelope. This was on the doorstep, no return address. She handed it to Marco. "Weird, right?" Marco frowned. He turned the envelope over. It was unremarkable. Plain white, his name written in elegant cursive that he didn't recognize. He tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. At the top, in neat letterhead, were the words, "Harrington Coal Industries, Office of the Chairman." Marco's blood went cold. He read the letter once, then again, then a third time, his hands beginning to shake. "Dear Mr. Bellini, consider this my daughter's divorce gift to you. As of 6 a.m. this morning, Harrington Coal Industries has completed the acquisition of the outstanding bonds that secure your corporate debt. We now hold 94% of your obligations. Additionally, we have acquired controlling interest in Pacific Vista Bank, your primary lender. All existing credit facilities extended to Bellini Enterprises have been recalled, effective immediately. Furthermore, upon reviewing the documentation provided by our forensic team, we have discovered significant irregularities in your tax filings, your SEC disclosures, and your prenuptial agreement with my daughter. This information has been forwarded to the appropriate regulatory authorities. Finally, I've been made aware of your recent meeting with Robert Ashworth. I believe you offered to provide him with confidential information about my company in exchange for his assistance in harming my daughter. Mr. Ashworth has been a close friend of mine for 30 years. He sends his regards. He also wanted me to tell you that the drinks are on him. You thought my daughter was weak because she was kind. You mistook her silence for surrender. You looked at her and saw a stepping stone, something to use and discard. You were wrong. She is my heir, my legacy, and she is stronger than you will ever understand. Enjoy your birthday, Mr. Bellini. It will be your last as a billionaire. Regards, Theodore Harrington. Marco dropped the letter. His hands weren't just shaking now. His whole body was trembling. He grabbed his phone, dialing his CFO with fingers that wouldn't cooperate. Paul Paul, tell me it's not true. Tell me about the bonds. Tell me about Pacific Vista. The silence on the other end was all the answer he needed. Marco, Paul's voice was strained. I've been trying to call you all morning. It's, it's bad. It's really bad. They've recalled everything. We have 48 hours to come up with $370 million or we're in default. And the SEC just called. They're opening an investigation. Marco, what the hell did you do? Marco hung up. Rita was staring at him from across the room, her face a mixture of confusion and dawning concern. Baby? What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Marco looked at her. He looked at this woman he had thrown away his marriage for. This woman who thought she was about to become Mrs. Bellini. This woman who had no idea that the future she had envisioned had just evaporated like morning fog. Get out, he whispered. What? Get out! Marco swept his arm across the nightstand, sending a lamp crashing to the floor. Get out of my house! Get out of my life! Get out! Get out! Get out! Rita scrambled backward, grabbing her clothes, her face a mask of shock and fear. She had never seen this side of him. The polished, charming billionaire was gone. In his place was something raw and desperate and ugly. She ran. Marco collapsed onto the bed, the letter crumpled in his fist. Outside, the marine layer was beginning to lift. Sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the room in cruel golden light. Happy birthday, Marco Bellini. The next 6 months were a masterclass in destruction. Marco fought, of course. He hired the most expensive lawyers. He gave interviews painting himself as the victim of a vindictive wife and her overbearing father. He tried to liquidate assets, to hide money, to find some escape route from the closing trap. But Jennifer and her team had been thorough, devastatingly thorough. The SEC investigation uncovered years of fraud. The tax authorities found discrepancies totaling tens of millions. His investors, spooked by the scandal, pulled out one by one. His board of directors, sensing blood in the water, voted to remove him as CEO. The Covington deal, his $400 million triumph, collapsed on the day it was supposed to close. And through it all, Jennifer remained silent. She didn't give interviews. She didn't gloat. She simply let the machinery of justice do its work while she rebuilt her own life. She moved to San Francisco, buying a modest apartment overlooking the bay. She went back to architecture, starting a small firm that specialized in affordable housing. She reconnected with friends she had neglected during her marriage. She remembered what it felt like to laugh without permission. The divorce was finalized on a rainy Tuesday in December. Marco showed up to the courthouse alone. No lawyers. He could no longer afford them. No Rita. She had disappeared the moment his money did, selling her story to a tabloid for $50,000. He was wearing a suit that no longer fit quite right. He had lost weight. His hair had gone gray at the temples. Jennifer arrived with Victoria Chen. She was wearing a simple navy dress, no jewelry except for a thin gold bracelet that had belonged to her mother. She looked healthy, rested, at peace. They didn't speak. The judge reviewed the settlement. Given Marco's fraud and misconduct, the prenuptial agreement had been voided. Jennifer was awarded the Malibu estate, a significant portion of his remaining liquid assets, and, thanks to California law, half of everything earned during the marriage. Marco was left with approximately $200,000, enough to survive, not enough to rebuild. As they walked out of the courthouse, Marco grabbed Jennifer's arm. You destroyed me, he hissed, his eyes red and wild. 11 years I gave you everything, and you destroyed me. Jennifer looked at his hand on her arm, then looked up at his face, the face she had loved once, the face that had sneered at her, belittled her, betrayed her. No, Marco, she said softly. You destroyed yourself. I just stopped cleaning up your messes. She pulled her arm free and walked away. She didn't look back. The rooftop bar of the Harrington Grand Hotel in downtown San Francisco sparkled with the lights of the city. It was the annual fundraiser for the Bay Area Housing Initiative, an organization Jennifer had founded 3 years ago. They had built over 2,000 units of affordable housing and had no plans to slow down. Jennifer stood near the edge of the terrace, a glass of champagne in her hand, watching the fog roll in over the Golden Gate Bridge. She was 43 now, and life had been kinder to her than she ever expected. She had remarried 2 years ago, a quiet ceremony with close friends and family. His name was Elliot Reeves, a professor of environmental science at Berkeley. He had kind eyes and calloused hands from weekend gardening. He made her coffee every morning and never once made her feel small. There you are. Elliot appeared beside her, slipping an arm around her waist. They're about to start the speeches. You're supposed to say something inspiring. Jennifer smiled. I hate speeches. I know, but you're good at them. He kissed her temple. I'll be in the front row, pretending I'm not crying. She laughed and watched him walk back inside. Life, she thought, had a way of working out. She was about to follow Elliot when she noticed a commotion near the service entrance. A man in a catering uniform was arguing with security, his voice loud and desperate. I just need to talk to her. 5 minutes, please. I know her. Jennifer's heart stopped. She recognized that voice. The security guards were escorting him out when she called across the terrace. Wait. Everyone turned. The man in the catering uniform looked up. His hair was completely gray now. His face was lined, weathered. He had the posture of someone who had been broken and never fully healed. It was Marco. Jennifer walked toward him slowly, aware that every eye in the room was on her. She stopped a few feet away, close enough to see the desperation in his eyes. Jennifer, Marco breathed. Thank God, I've been trying to reach you for months. Your people keep blocking me. I just need to explain, to apologize. Jennifer studied him, the man who had once called her a cleaning lady, the man who had promised another woman she would be Mrs. Bellini, the man who had tried to destroy her father's company out of spite. He looked so small now, not a titan of industry, just a broken man in a catering uniform, begging for scraps of attention from the woman he had thrown away. You're working catering? She asked quietly. Marco's jaw tightened. It's, temporary, until I get back on my feet. I have some plans, some ideas. I just need capital, and I thought, maybe your father, maybe you could... Stop. Jennifer's voice was gentle but firm. Marco, I'm not going to give you money. I'm not going to ask my father to invest in you. And I'm not going to stand here and listen to you explain why you did what you did. She paused. I forgave you a long time ago. Not for your sake, but for mine. Carrying that anger was exhausting, so I let it go. Then why won't you help me? Because helping you wouldn't be helping you. It would be enabling you, and you don't need that. She looked at him with something that might have been pity or might have been compassion. It was hard to tell the difference. You need to do what I did 5 years ago. You need to start over. On your own terms. Without anyone else's name or money to prop you up. Marco's face crumpled. I can't. I don't know how. I know. Jennifer's voice softened. You've never had to. You were born with advantages, and you treated them like entitlements. You surrounded yourself with people who told you what you wanted to hear. You never learned that real strength isn't about power. It's about getting back up when you have nothing. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a business card. This is a workforce development program we fund. They help people find jobs, build skills, get back on their feet. She pressed the card into his palm. If you're serious about starting over, call them. They won't judge you. They'll just help. Marco looked at the card, then looked at her. That's it? After everything? What did you expect, Marco? That I'd scream at you? That I'd throw a drink in your face? That I'd rub your nose in how far you've fallen? Jennifer shook her head slowly. I'm not that person. I never was. That's the part you never understood. She turned to walk away. Jennifer. She paused. I'm sorry. Marco's voice cracked. I know it doesn't change anything. I know it's too late. But I'm sorry. For all of it. For not seeing you. For not valuing you. For being so blinded by my own ego that I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. I believe you, she finally said. And I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, Marco. I really do. She walked back inside, back to Elliot, back to the life she had built from the ashes of the one Marco had burned. Marco stood on the terrace, alone. The fog had rolled in completely now, swallowing the lights of the city. He looked at the business card in his hand, a workforce development program, like he was some kind of case study, some kind of charity project. The humiliation burned. But underneath the humiliation, something else stirred. Something he hadn't felt in years. Maybe it was rock bottom. Maybe it was the beginning of something new. He didn't know. All he knew was that the woman he had dismissed as weak, the woman he had called a cleaning lady, a placeholder, a stepping stone, had just shown him more grace in 5 minutes than he had shown her in 11 years. And that, he realized, was the real lesson. Not the money, not the empire, not the Malibu estate or the private jets or the Hermes ties. The lesson was that kindness wasn't weakness, silence wasn't surrender. And the people you step on while climbing to the top are often the same people you'll need to catch you when you fall. Marco put the card in his pocket. He walked back to the service entrance, back to the kitchen where trays were waiting to be loaded, back to the life he had never imagined living. And for the first time in 5 years, he didn't look for shortcuts. And that, my friends, is the story of how Marco Bellini lost everything. Not because of bad luck, not because of a cruel world, but because he made the fatal mistake of underestimating a woman who loved him. He saw her kindness as weakness. He saw her silence as surrender. He saw her patience as passivity. And he never realized until it was far too late that she was the foundation his entire empire was built on. The moment he kicked her out, the whole structure came crashing down. Jennifer didn't destroy Marco. She simply stopped holding him up. And sometimes that's the most devastating revenge of all. So I want to ask you, was Jennifer right to show Marco grace at the end? Or should she have let him suffer without offering any help at all? And what about Marco? Do you think he can actually change? Or is he doomed to repeat his mistakes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story hit you in the feels, please smash that like button. It really does help the algorithm share these stories with more people. And if you haven't already, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new upload. We post stories of karma, justice, and powerful women every single week. Thanks for watching, and remember, be very careful who you underestimate, because the quiet ones, they're often the ones holding all the cards. Until next time.